Hey, what's up, everybody? Tim Albrecht here, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of our very own fee-only certified financial planners. Please note this podcast is intended for educational purposes and should not be considered financial or investment advice, as we do not know all the variables to one's personal situation when answering a question. Before we jump into today's question, a shout out to our extraordinary YFP financial planning team that makes this segment possible. Your Financial Pharmacist offers fee-only comprehensive financial planning services that are customized to the pharmacy professional. So whether you want to pay off your student loans, make the right investment decisions, or simply build a solid financial plan, we'll help get your income working for you rather than the other way around. You can learn more by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com. Okay, this week's question comes from Karen in Coral Springs.
Hi, this is Karen from Coral Springs, and I have a question about public service loan forgiveness. I've worked for 501c3 nonprofit universities for the last 10 years, and I know that I've made, according to my records at least, the correct number of qualifying payments. Unfortunately, I've been under the wrong repayment plan. So I'm wondering, is it even worth it to apply for temporary public service loan forgiveness? And how do I go about doing it?
Thank you, Karen, for submitting your question to be featured on this week's Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast. Tim Baker, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is one of the, the reasons why, PSLF kind of gets a bad rap because, like what I always say is it is definitely one of those programs where you have to make sure that you're crossing T's and dotting I's. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, professionals out there that just don't understand, forgiveness, student loans in general. I would absolutely go down the path of applying for the temporary expanded public service loan forgiveness program, or the TEPSLF. This program is meant to really, for you, Karen, for borrowers just like you. So this is a response to the high ineligibility rates because of, I think, the poor administration of the PSLF program and just how it was rolled out and explained. And there's just a lot of confusion around it. Again, we still believe at YFP that PSLF is a viable strategy, but we're also biased because, we feel like, the resources and then the advice that we give on a one-on-one basis it puts you on that path, for, some comfort that you will be forgiven at the end of the road there. So the TEPSLF program is relief to borrowers for direct student loans who have made some or all of their payments on time, but just in the wrong repayment plan. So, and this is probably the most common reason that applications for PSLF are, rejected. So if you're in the situation, as Karen, outlined, there's really a few steps that you should walk through or go through to kind of, see if you're eligible for the TEPSLF. So the first thing is to check your eligibility for PSLF. So really the cadence of this, and we've talked about this before at length, is that you got to, you make sure that you work for the right type of employer. So that is a 501c3 nonprofit or the government. You have to be in the right kind of loan. So as I mentioned, those are the direct loans. So things like Perkins and FFEL, FEL loans, need not apply. Same thing with private loans. Those don't count. You got to be in the right repayment plan. And then again, this is where we typically, miss. So a lot of people, they'll be in one of those extended or graduated repayment plans and think that because the payment is lower that, hey, I'm in an income-driven plan, and this is typically where the miss happens. You got to make those right amount of payments, which are the 120 payments, typically over 10 years, but it doesn't have to be consecutive, on time. And then you prove it, which making sure that you're making those payments while you're working for a nonprofit, and then you apply for the PSLF. So the next part of this is really to show that you're actually ineligible for PSLF, so that you've submitted a PSLF application and you've been determined ineligible. So if you haven't done that step yet, it kind of sounds almost counterintuitive, but you have to be rejected before you can kind of move forward. And the reason typically is because you're in that that wrong repayment plan. And then just understanding the TEPSLF requirements. So you have to basically be paying what you should have been paying in an income-driven plan. So if you don't know that, Fed loan supposedly can help you out with that. I don't put a lot of stock in that because I don't think Fed loan is very helpful at all. And I've outlined my position on that at length. So again, maybe working with a professional that understands, what that calculation is, and see, because they might come back and say, well, based on your repayment, 100 of these count, but these other ones don't. Typically, if you're in a graduated or an extended plan, they typically do count. Even if you're in a standard plan, those do count, even though that's kind of counterintuitive as well. But you have to basically understand what the calculations are. And then really the last thing is to request, the TPSLF consideration. And believe it or not, the way you do this is you don't fill out a form, you just email. So you email Fed Loan Servicing at TEPSLF at myfedloan.org. And you request that the Department of Education that they reconsider your PSLF eligibility. I'll say it again, TEPSLF at myfedloan.org is where, so you just, and actually on their website, on the studentaid.gov website, if you go to managed loans, student loan forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness, and then finally temporary expanded public student loan service loan forgiveness, they actually have draft language on the website that says, here's the model. So subject, I request that the Department of Ed reconsider my eligibility for public service loan forgiveness, my name, date of birth, and then I think there's some type of number that you get with your PSLF application that you can reference. And then you just wait to hear back from them and cross your fingers that it does go through. But absolutely, Karen, what I would do is run through these steps. Definitely use the studentaid.gov website to kind of guide you outside of what we're outlining here. It's worth a shot. I mean, the worst they could say is no, but it's definitely designed for, I think, people or borrowers that are in the same situation that you've outlined.
Yeah, and Karen, appreciate you bringing the question forward, and Tim for the recap on PSLF requirements, because I think we likely have many listeners that may be on the front end of this and they can correct course if need be, or students that are wondering what's all involved and making sure they understand they got to cross their T's, dot their I's, or perhaps folks that are in a situation similar to Karen, more on the back end of this and need to correct and look into the TEPSLF. And I would also point our listeners, whether you're on this path or you're considering this path, or you just want, to hear it again. Episode 18, we talked about maximizing benefits of PSLF. Episode 78, we talked about, is pursuing PSLF a waste? And that was really after some of the initial news came out about the low percentage of people that were accepted for loan forgiveness. So check out those two resources. I would also point you to one of our newest resources over at YFP, the Pharmacist's Guide to Conquering Student Loans, authored by our very own Tim Church. And you can pick up a copy of that at pharmdloans.com, where he talks extensively about all of the repayment options that are available and helping you identify which of those options is best for your personal situation. And of course, in that discussion is public service loan forgiveness. And as you look at the options available for the book on the website, again, pharmdloans.com, you'll notice in there we have an option where you can also get a one-on-one student loan analysis with one of our very own YFP certified financial planners. So Karen, again, thank you for taking time to submit your question. We really appreciate it. And as a small thank you, we're going to be sending you a super comfy YFP t-shirt. And to those listening, if you'd like to have your question featured on a future episode, please go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask YFP or shoot us an email at info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com. Have a great rest of your day.